morning. We are in Rambam Chovel uMazzik, Perokim. We want to discuss a very interesting halacha in Perokim, halacha Aleph and halacha Beis mainly. The halacha here talks about hurting another person in a way that causes damage. And it says also la'adam lachbel, a person cannot create a damage by hitting a person. Bein ba'atzre, bein b'chaverei. Can't do it to yourself, you can't do it to others. Even to yourself, you're not allowed to. Now, we're not going to get into that part, but it is an interesting point. A lot to be said on it about that, but that's not where our discussion is going to take us today. Not only somebody. Now here we go. Here starts the progression of not only somebody who causes a damage by hitting the person, where he makes him bleed or he creates some kind of a result of his hitting him or doing some damage, doing something to him physically. Anybody who hits a righteous Jew, bein gadol, even a child, it doesn't matter. Bein ish, bein isha, whether a man or a woman. Now here he has a lashon that is really unique in some way. Derech nitzoyin, through. Now, the Nitzayin comes from the word matzah umeriva, through a fight, in a way of fighting. Others have a version where it says derech bizoyin, but by us it says derech nitzayin. Derech bizoyin would be a more common word. Nitzayin is a rare word in the Rambam. Areza oiver beloisa, say he is transgressed a leisas. And which leisas? An interesting leisas. Not a leisas that don't hit a Jew. Leisas says when you're giving malchus to a Jew, don't add. Now, again, the Rambam seems to feel that that's not sufficient. The fact that it says when you're hitting a Jew, don't give more than you have to, but he makes a kal v'chemer, which again also needs an explanation, but I don't know if we're going to get to that. In his Hira Torah, the Torah warned us, certainly the law is to hit that you're not allowed to hit a tzaddik. Now, if he needs the kal v'chemer, we have to deal with ein mazir min adin. If it's just to bring out the point, why is he doing it? I'm not sure. I don't know what's the necessity of this. I don't know where his source for this is either. Okay, now comes a really unique halacha. Halacha Beis, he adds, Afilu lahagbiya yodoi al chaveira, just to raise your hand against somebody. Osir, it is osir. V'chol hamagbiya yodoi al chaveira, af al pi shaloi hiko, harei a rush. Even if he didn't hit him, he's a rush. Okay, so there's a lot of issues with this Rambam. We're going to get to them a little later. What's the source? What Isser is it? Is it the Raisa? Is it the Rabbanon? And so on and so forth. And exactly what did he do? Where is the source of this halacha? Gemara. In Masechta Sanhedrin says, Amar Reish Lakish, Hamagbiya Yodai al Chaveirei, somebody who raises his hand against somebody else, Af al Pishalei, called Nikra Rasha. He's called a Rasha. Shenem Abayema La Rasha, as it says in Parshas Shmos, that when Moshe Rabbeinu went out and to see the Jews, and he saw a person hitting another person, And he said to him, and he said, La Rasha. He said to the Rasha, Lama Sakarayach. Why are you hitting your friend? So it doesn't say Lama Hikisa Lenema. It doesn't say why did you hit him. Lama, in other words, if he hit him, okay, so he hit him, it's a Rosh. Lama Saka, why are you planning to hit him? And therefore we learn Ava Bishalai Kohu, Nikra Rosh, he's called a Rosh. Yeah. Now, what ramifications are there from this calling him a Rasha? So in the Mordechai Baba Kama, on the Gemara there that the Gemara mentions that he writes, Kolam Agbiya Yada Chaveri Ava Bishalei Konik Rasha, being a psak posak Ravon. This is a famous psak. It is mentioned in the Agoy's Maimoni on the Rambam here. The Yesh the Kreisei Rasha. One, you have a right to call him a Rasha. Pasul Eidus, and he is also not allowed. He is possible to be an aid, a witness. And in a case of swearing, he's not trusted, this Rasha, and the other guy will swear. Okay, so this is a very, and now halachically, it's a question whether we go according to Ravon or not. We'll discuss that as we go on. But this Ravon is a breakthrough, that there is a psul eidus on a person who raises his hand to hit another Jew, but he doesn't. Now, in the Shiur, in the Maram Rutenberg, in one of his shuvas, was asked, who cares that you nick a Rasha? What ramifications are there? Now, he clearly disagrees with Ravon, and he just says that the fact that you can call a person a Rasha is a ramification. Not only that, he suggests that we have to make sure that people do, that we announce it, that he's a Rasha. Just to note, there's a famous Gemara, Akayri l'chaveri Rasha. The other guy, if you call somebody a Rasha, the other person has a right to respond by doing very, very damaging things to you. What they are, again, it's not in the scope of our conversation, different opinions of how far it can go, but he definitely has rights to respond and quote unquote retaliate to some degree, because that is a very, very strong accusation and it carries a lot of negative connotations and you got to respond. Okay. I'm not going to get into all the details of who says what, just going to tell you that it is a very, very big shaila, whether one who, such a person is postulatus or not. And the interesting thing about this is that the Beis Yosef on the tour seems to take for granted that it obviously going to be, he's going to be postulatus. But when it comes to the Mechaber, as he wrote the Shulchan Aruch, he omitted that. And the only one who says it is the Ramah in Hilchos Eidos. So Melamed Daled, he adds the line that he's postulatus. Alter Rebbe in Hilchos Niskei Guf and Nefesh doesn't mention postulatus. Okay. So let's get the picture. The Ravan holds that he's postulatus. And Ram Rutenberg and others argue and say they're not postulatus. What's the what is the relevance of calling him a Rasha, that we allow people to refer to him as a Rasha? The Beis Yosef says, as we said, in Beis Yosef, he says yes. However, in Shulchan Aruch, he says no. Another point that the Beis Yosef writes, that one who raises his hand against somebody else, of course, we don't get malchus, but the psul is midrabanon. Now, regarding the Rambam, who says Arei Ze Rasha, so the Rivash understood his words to mean that he's not possible to Eidus Shua. And he believes that the Ravan does not go according to the Rambam. Okay. So let's analyze the Rambam that we just learned in Hilchos Chovel uMazzik, and I will bring various points that it's there, point out certain things. Some are things that have already been pointed out. Some are things that have come that I have seen that I think should be pointed out. But let's go through. The Rebbe, Lekutei Sichos Chelik Lamed Aleph, in Parashat Shemais. So he says, Sicha Aleph, he notes a couple of things about this Rambam. In the Gemara that we quoted, the Gemara says, Afilu lahagbi yodei al chaveire aser, and it says, Nikre Rashi, he's called the Rashi. The Rambam, on the other hand, changes it. Instead of writing Nikra Rasha, he writes that he is Hareze Rasha. He is a Rasha. Number one. The Gemara also, and not the Gemara, the Tur and the Mechaber and the Alter Rebbe all add another word. V'hamerim yad al chaverei lahakoisoi lehakoisoi. A person raised his hand on his friend to hit him, and he didn't end up hitting him. That's the way it's understood. In other words, he tried hitting him in his hand. The Rambam leaves out the word lahakoisoi. Now, obviously, it doesn't mean if somebody just lifted up his hand because he was trying to do something else. And then his friend happened to be saying there, why? Obviously, he had some negative intentions, but it wasn't necessarily lahakoisei. Could have been just to scare him, according to the Rambam. Could have been just to, get his attention in a way that he will be a little tepid and not as and deal with him in a different way. But he had no intent of actually hitting him. The Rambam does not require an intent of hitting. Okay, now, to note that the Rambam does not say postulates. Question is why? That's the next one. So the first two points were the Rebbe's points, and then I'm just adding another few points. It doesn't say postulates. So again, according to Rivash, it isn't postulates, but not everybody. It's definitely a different. There's a different opinion what the Rambam holds. Next, why does he write so? We know that the Rambam's intent is always to be short and to the point. Here is very, very detailed. Let's read the way he writes it. I feel like me asur. It's all to raise your hand against your friend. Okay, if I were writing Rambam, no, I was not tasked with that mission in life, but if I were, I would have written it the way that Rambam would usually write, in a much shorter form, and there's no reason to write so much. I would write, "Afilu la'agbiya yodai al chaveira aser, afal pisha lohi kohu, and harei zarosh." What's that? Feel like aser v'chol amagbiya yodai. What are the two things? And that's another point. The other issue is, where does he add the words of Amagbiya Afal Bishalayiko? Puts it in when he's talking about Nikarash. Why didn't he say it right away? I feel like Afal Bishalayiko. Usher. Why does he put it at the end? Now, if you do learn the Rambam, that it has nothing to do with hitting, as the fact that he doesn't write Lakaisa, and just raising your hand against somebody, at raising your hand to scare somebody is a Russia and all that. What's it doing here? Hey, we're talking about Chovel, Maket. We're not talking about you, Midas Tavis of not trying to scare people. That belongs in Hilchos Deus, somewhere like that. And then there's another question that everybody asks. Why is it such a chumrah? Why is it such a chumrah about this? That somebody raises his hand is called a Rasha. Gemara says in Kedushin, okay, now let's go back to Halacha Aleph, which we haven't yet examined. I mean, we mentioned it when we learned. So somebody hits an Adam Kosher Yisrael, and he says, when is the Chiyuv? Im Eiser Derech Nitzay. He does it Derech Nitzay. In other words, if he just wanted to hit him because, not out of anger, he just felt the guy deserves it. Or calmly, no fight, he just decided as a joke to hit him. Okay, it's only Derech Nitzay. Where did that come from? Now, there's another shaila. If you are Chovel b'chaveirei without derech nitzayim, this word derech nitzayim, is this going on the whole halacha, or is it only going on the second part of halacha of hitting? What about chabola? You caused some damage to it, but you did it out of a joke. What's halacha? You were Chovel. You actually made some blood run from him and stuff like that. Is that okay? Only derech nitzayim. Okay, these are the points that need to be examined. And the Rebbe in that sikha says beautiful points, and that are very, negaya to understanding this whole issue. He says as follows. There are three ways to understand this thing of raising your hand against your friend. One, it's not a halacha. It's a way of life telling you this is not an appropriate way of life. And if you look at the Gemara that we mentioned, Gemara goes through. The Gemara doesn't stop with a Reza Rush. The Gemara calls them other things and says a lot of negative things about him. That's one way. Second way is that it is an Isser Gomur, it's a complete Isser Midrabanon, and another that it's even a Leisas of the rice, and you might even be Chayav Malkus. So the first thing is clear. And the Rambam is here to make a point that raising your hand against your friend is definitely an Isser Derais. Is an Isser, not Isser Derais. Now we have two ways to understand that, and the same thing with the Leisas Derais. But we'll see why it's only in this point if it's a Rabban. When you raise your hand against a friend, against somebody else, is it because you're in the process of hitting him? Okay, it didn't work out, but you're in the process. So that's what's usher, to get into the process of hitting, or no? Just the mere fact that you raised your hand against somebody, that's what's usher. And the explanation is that is what the Rambam is saying. The Rambam is saying this is the main point. Just the fact that you raised your hand against another Jew, even if you had no intention of hitting him, to scare him, to create a certain environment. That's it. Raising your hand against Jews is the Isser alone. Now, that even makes it harder, the question that we asked, what's it doing here? But at least it's not a Indian mystery, so we can understand somewhat. Now, going to the final point, the one of the questions that we asked, why is it so chamer? So the Rebbe goes into a very beautiful explanation of why using your hand against somebody is so chamer. And he says that the person's created to serve God. Person's created to serve God. And if you don't, through Torah mitzvahs, and that's the Sefer Haredim goes through all the different things. And he says that the hand is the indication of giving, right? And when you use it in a negative, you are totally misusing it. And that's the Isser. And then he goes in a second reason, a beautiful, beautiful, deep reason. But the point is that this is a unique type of Isser. There's no question it's a unique type of Isser. Okay, so let's take out the points that come out from what he says. The main point of the Rambam is that the Isser of raising your hand against somebody is not because you tended to hit the person. It's the raising of the hand itself with an intent, with your own intent. Derech Nitzayin. I don't know Derech Nitzayin. It goes on this, but necessarily. Now, this fits very much to Rashi, who seems to say that. But we're not going to get into that right now. But there's a Rashi that seems very much in line with this. Second point that the Rebbe makes, which I haven't stressed yet, is that he's not called a Rosh. He is a Rosh. And the Rebbe learned that this is to teach you that he's Posleidus. Nikar Rosh wouldn't necessarily mean to Posleidus. He is a Rosh, he's Posleidus. Altashus Rosh. Hey. According to the Rambam, it's an Isser Rabbanon. And that's why he's called. Yeah. Now, according to this, again, you can understand what we asked, why the Rambam breaks it up into. Because if he would have put it together as one, the message wouldn't come out. Like first, he establishes the Isser. Then he wants to stress that this is an act of, in other words, just the raising of the hand itself. And he written that like me, it would sound like it's connected. No, just raising your hand. Then he just stresses that you're called a Rosh even though you didn't hit him. Just the logistics. But first he establishes the Isser. The Isser is like me, without lakaisa, not the word lakaisa. And that would be, it never doesn't say that in the Sikha, but I think that works out beautiful. Now, again, I want to make point that this works according to those. Now, the whole Halacha has can work in many ways, but just the point of Areza Rasha means that you're Apostle Eidus, according to the opinions that hold it, that's what the Shittas Rambam is. But there are definitely early Achreinim and perhaps Shainim that don't hold like that, but that's a point of view. There are different opinions on that. Okay, that's a beautiful explanation. Now, there still remain some points that need to be explained. So I want to mention a few things that based on this idea that there is that raising your hand in its own right is an Isser. Dealing with a Jew in a negative way is an Isser. We'll see in a second. Rabbi Moshe in Igrus Meisha has a shaila. If somebody wants to do cosmetic surgery, is that considered an Isser of Chovel begufa? As we said, you're not also lachbel ba'atzma, you're not allowed to do Chovel on yourself. And he answers, he brings this Rambam That the Rambam writes that it's only asa derech nitzayin. And he clearly learns the Rambam that the Rambam is derech nitzayin goes on Chovel too, as we asked earlier. And he says that since it's not derech nitzayin, it's liapis esatzma. It's to make herself nicer, so that's okay. However, he says that there are those who learn that it's two separate halachas. That's only going on market. Somebody hits the Jew, then there's a derech nitzayin. But on the Chovel, it is not negayah. Has nothing to do with that. And he says it doesn't make sense to say like that because it's all one pasuk, like Yosef. And if you're going to tell me that one part means this, one part again, it's not that you're learning it out all from the same halacha. Oh, in the Chuvas of Divrei Atziv, the Kleisvig Rebbe, he writes about this Rambam. He obviously understands it differently. That the reason the Rambam stresses derech nitzayin is coming to take away, coming to exclude a teacher hitting his child, his student, or somebody who's doing it just for the intent of helping the person stay away from Aveir. And that's why he stresses Kal V'chein L'makes Hatzadik. But the point is that it's not derech nitzayin. As long as it's not for the sake of the person to help him, that's what derech nitzayin comes. Okay, do different approaches. But according to Rabbi Moshe, it fits. We can even say that derech nitzayin, that Chovel has to be derech nitzayin. There's a Yidud de Reb Chaim in Hilchos Tein V'Nitten, Perokim Halacha Beis. It says, "I'm Leidiki Yisaid." I'm not going to get into the sugya there, but it is a very big sugya. And he differentiates between Kabbalah and uMazzik. In other words, the Chamisha Dvarim that you chayiv by Kabbalah, Nezek Tzari, B'Sheves, and Beishas. And he wants to say as follows: that you're not in uMazzik. Why do you pay uMazzik? You pay uMazzik. You damaged, you hurt the guy, you caused some lack, some loss, and you pay back the loss. You break somebody's object, you got to replace it. So basically replacing what you did, undoing what you did in some way. But by Chovel, those parts that are definitely the ones that are not actual nezek, but maybe even the nezek. The payment is not what it's about. The payment is a result of the fact that you are chovel. It's not the Chovel itself is not an act that causes tashlumim. The tashlumim is a result of the fact that you were a chovel, that you hurt somebody, you hit somebody, you hurt somebody, you caused them certain damages. Whereas it's not replacing what the guy lost, it's just sort of like a punishment for what you did. So the payment is an incidental thing, and the actual chiyuv stems from the fact that I did a avera. Now, if that is the case, for a lot of things makes sense. Rabbi Moshe's approach would fit with this very nicely. Why? Because if you're telling me that I damaged somebody and I have to pay, what do you tell me? Who cares what I thought? Who cares why I did it? I was derech nitzayin. It wasn't derech nitzayin. It doesn't matter. But if you tell me that I only pay because I have been over an aveira as a result of being over an aveira, then it has to be derech nitzayin. Not derech nitzayin. I wasn't over. And that's the first. We have to first determine your aveira. If you say that, we can at least understand the progression of the Rambam here and these two halachas. and forget why this halacha of Magbiya Yodai, just to scare him, fits here. First halacha is when you are over a lav of hitting another Jew, which causes damage. Chovel. So that lav makes you pay for the damage. Then there's the second point, a lav where you just hit and there is no damage. You're over a lav. Third is when you attempt to raise your hand for whatever you're doing to the other person, scaring him and avoiding, making him, creating a certain atmosphere that you want in your relationship. Well, despite the fact that you had no intention of hitting him, that's also usher. So it's really all about the isser. It's not about Hilchas Chovel here. Because that's what Hilchas Chovel is about, is the isser. So it fits beautifully how the Rambam went through this progression. It's all about the Maisa, not about the money. Yeah. So if you did not have that derech litzoyin, where it wasn't an avera, it wasn't intended as in that way, so you don't get the avera, nothing else follows, and therefore that's why he's stressing. And this fits very well with the approach that we heard, that we brought before from the Rebbe. There's still a necessity to explain the Rambam according to the opinions that understand that the Rambam Shitta is that the Rambam Shitta is that you are not posseladus, and how to learn the Rambam, but due to the limit, I want to put some limit in time. We will leave that maybe for a different time, but it's a bit of a discussion, so we'll stop here. Anyways, I gesund, have a great Tzloch Rambam Flagge.